right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this presentation about finding scholarships. We were kind of, I was kind of conflicted when I found out that basketball is also happening tonight and UConn is playing. I was told I don't follow sports, but in my head I was like, oh, great, no one's gonna show up to the presentation because everyone's watching UConn. So thank you for showing for coming to the presentation. All right, so just a couple of things. First, thank you for posting in the chat what grade your teenagers are in. I've noticed that we only have parents here. I don't think we have any teenagers here on the call. So that's fine. Now we know who's more concerned about the scholarships. Um, all right. So for those of you who haven't been to a presentation before, just a really quick background about me. I am a college counselor. I've been doing this for about 12 years at this point, and my entire goal is to basically make 98% of all college applications process related information completely free and available, because it's almost as if this is stuff I feel like we should have known when we were in high school. And I'm not saying that somebody has to hold your hand through everything, but at least we should be aware of what's going on, what websites are relevant, what resources we should be clicking on, what basically how to navigate our own process. So thank you. If you are interested in any of that information, I know that a couple of you already follow me on social media, and thank you for that. But if anyone else is interested, there's just free snippets. If you want just bite-sized pieces of information so it's not overwhelming, then you can find it on the Facebook or the Instagram, whichever one is convenient for you. They both have the same content. Or on my website for the really long articles of just any category. So website is letstalkcollege.org, and there are lots of guides and a lot of free information available if you are interested. So no pressure on any of it. It's just, again, because my goal is to make 98% of this free, it might be helpful if I showed you or I told you where to find this 98% of this information. So you go on my website, you'll find it right here. We have topics about the scholarships, the digital SAT stuff. There's also a pop-up that comes up for the video on the digital SAT information. So if you're interested in that, or the library also has this information, this presentation that we did, I believe in January, that's on the YouTube page as well. So again, everything is as available as possible on this. And then we have financial aid. There's a guide of just what kind of financial aid is available out there, who the sources are. And we're going to cover a little bit of that in today's presentation, just really quick in the beginning. And then there are just a bunch of articles and resources. So feel free to check out whatever you're interested in. And that's it from that particular website. Let me see if I can. Okay, so there we go. So now we just have a new tab. All right. In regards to content that you can find on the website or just from me, so these are all the categories that I have previously worked with students with, just one-on-one consulting. That's college searches to help you make your college list. We've done test prep, and for now, I would probably take a little bit of a step back from test prep just because the exam got the SAT rather got just a complete revamp. So there aren't enough question sets available for independent tutors to train the students on. If you're looking for a significant improvement, if you're looking for a small improvement, incremental, then we can totally help you out. But there isn't enough content for independent tutors like myself to work with you right now for SAT prep. But other than that, for all the juniors and such, filling out college applications, your resume, packaging your extracurricular information, guidance on asking for recommendations, all of that, essays, supplementals, interviews, and so on. All right, so with all of that said, today's agenda. We're going to first start with the sources of funding that are available to you as you approach your college process. And I know that a couple in the chat mentioned that you already have kids in college. So the idea of scholarships is available. It's available to everybody. It's not limited just to the high schoolers or even just specifically high school juniors or seniors. It's actually open starting middle school. So that's why when I mentioned earlier, oh, I'm surprised there's no one in middle school. It's because you can start applying to scholarships in middle school. But otherwise, yes, so we're going to talk about sources of funding, then what is a scholarship, the types of different scholarships, the categories rather that can exist. And then we're going to actually go online into these databases and run a few searches for at least the databases that don't involve having an account, because I don't have an account for some of these since probably could create an educator account, but they're databases and we'll end up seeing a lot of overlap. So you'll see it. Couple of myths and versus reality, that just misconceptions that exist in this realm of scholarship. Some of the limiting beliefs that we have that prevent us from actually applying to scholarships or enough scholarships. Scams, a couple of things just to be aware of that exist out there and how you can navigate them. They're pretty simple or common sense, but it's worth mentioning again. And of course, how are scholarships dispersed? Especially if, let's say, you have middle schoolers who could apply for scholarships, or ninth graders and 10th graders, it's going to be a while before they go to college. So what happens to that money? How is it coming into you? And when is it coming into you? If it's you, if it's going to the university, what's happening? Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about disbursement. And if at any point you have any questions whatsoever, please just post them in the chat. I'll have the chat running on the side of my screen, so you can just post it and I will cache the questions. So I don't want you to have to wait until later on down the line of this presentation to ask whatever questions it is that you have, okay? All right, so first up, your sources of funding. There are three major sources of funding. First one is the federal government or state government, but mostly it's going to be the federal government, Department of Education. Now, excuse me. So the Department of Education has a couple different types of funding available. The first one are grants, and grants can be either based on the field of study you're going into. So if you're going to be a teacher, there's a grant for that. Then if it's needs-based, that's the second category. So if it's needs-based, then you'll have the Pell Grant, which is about maximum is like 7,000 something is the maximum that you can get for the Pell Grant. And then there's also an additional mini grant that you can get needs-based. So grants. And grants, just by definition, just money that does not need to be paid back. And it's based, again, on the field of study you're going into or needs. So you're displaying financial need, okay? Then after that, there's the Federal Work Study Program. And with the Federal Work Study Program, while this can show up in your package, in your financial aid package, which right now, March and April are the times that your financial aid package comes out from the government. And with this year's FAFSA, things have gotten a little mixed up, quite a lot delayed depending on which university and when you submitted your FAFSA and everything. Things are a little wonky, but for all the current juniors at least and under, the new FAFSA should be sorted by then. But either way, so what is federal work study? It basically means that you are working at you have a part-time job at the university, an approved job that is for work study students. Now, something to note about this type of package is that on your financial aid form, there's going to be an amount. So some, let's say, might say $2,000. That doesn't mean you're getting the $2,000. It's just that's the estimated value of income that you may be earning at your university job. Not guaranteed. You might be paid less than that. You might be paid more than that. This is just an approximate. And also, it's based on you getting a job once you're at university. So if you don't get the job, you don't get the federal work study qualification. You can always go find another job. It's just the universities reserve certain jobs, a couple hundred jobs, for the federal work study students. Okay. But in this case, there's no outright payment. It's not like grants or scholarships or loans where you just have the money deposited into your account or directly to the university and boom, that money is sent off to pay your bills. This one is it's just oh, you're probably working the first semester and we're hoping that you're spending the money on your education, or you're probably not going to have a job freshman first semester because you're a newbie and seniority. So maybe you'll have a job in your second semester. And then you might be using that money to pay for your future expenses, but you still have to have something for your current expenses, right? It's to pay your current expenses. Okay, so that's federal work study. And then there are different types of loans. And again, for more details, this is in that guide if you want it. But really, you have just a loan that basically does not collect interest until 6 months after graduation, and then you have the type of loan that collects interest immediately afterwards. So usually for the undergraduate, it's more common to have the loan where you do not collect interest until after you graduate, which is called the subsidized loan because the government is paying off your interest for the 4 or 5 years that you are in school. And that's really just for the undergraduate. Once you decide to get a higher education, you basically will get only the loans that collect and start collecting interest immediately. And then there are the loans that parents can get. to help pay for their teenagers' expenses. All right, then the other source of financial aid will come from the university. Now, the university can offer in two different ways. The first one is merit-based scholarships. So these will be oh, you have the higher GPA or the community service or the SAT score, or you just really fit the profile that we want because maybe it's a diversity in terms of location, maybe it's a sport that you play, maybe whatever it is, and they want you, they would love for you to attend that university. Um, they will offer you money. Okay. And that could be $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 really varies based on the budget that the university has, and also how far in advance did you apply? Because for current, let's say juniors, if you apply early action, which is not binding, if the earlier you apply, the more likely you are to be perceived as a serious candidate, a serious student, and the more likely you are to receive some of that funding while it's still full. And then once they start giving out the money, there's less and less and less available. So um, that also factors in when did you apply? And then, of course, there's needs-based aid. Now, with needs-based aid, particularly when you apply early, they might not get your FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, because the deadlines might not be there yet, or the form might not be open yet. But there are other ways to indicate, and in the next slide, we'll talk about the applications. But for now, needs-based is the other way that universities can provide you with funding. And then finally, we have the private sources, which really that's our main topic for today. And within that, we have the scholarships and grants that can come from the communities, local communities, businesses, and corporations. So for example, Discover will have the Discover credit card. They'll have scholarships available, or T-Mobile had a scholarship until recently. What was the other one? Home Depot, I think, was giving out 100 something. I don't want to make up the number, but it was giving out a couple $100,000 in scholarships. So it'll be those types. And then, of course, for loans, you always have the banks and the credit unions and so on. But one thing to note is that the loans for the federal government, while the interest rates are still, ugh, you're more likely to get a fixed interest rate in the federal loan from the government as opposed to from going to a bank or a credit union. So just something to keep in mind, because I did have a parent who said, the interest rates are not as low as you would expect from the government. And that's true, but the advantage is just the possibility of fixed interest rates as opposed to potential variation from banks or credit unions. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. Yeah, just pop them in the chat as they come along. So then we have the sources of financial aid, or we just talked about that, but the applications rather for the financial aid. So if you're talking and you would like the federal or state government sponsorships in any way, aid in any way, then you want, or the university, you want to turn in your FAFSA, which this year, so the 2024 FAFSA for all the current seniors and anyone in college really got toast this time around, because FAFSA completely changed their layout. And they did that because the old FAFSA did not account for some family specific situations. They did not account for, let's say, separated parents and you have two households, but are they filing together? Are they filing separately? What's happening with the income? So like those nuances that used to happen, FAFSA did not cover. It was very general, which means that you end up paying more out of pocket, or you're expected to pay more out of pocket, even if that's not really what your financial situation looks like. Now, the CSS profile, which is another application, this one is not free. It can cost you anywhere from $25 to $35, but there are waivers available to those who qualify. So always talk to your guidance counselor about potential discount codes and such. But the CSS profile is a much more detailed application. And in the CSS profile, what tends to happen is it's a long application. It asks you all these specific things, but the CSS profile only goes directly to the university. So it's not going to the federal government, and the CSS profile is just an application. Whereas FAFSA, you could receive funding from the government to actually help you out. The CSS profile is just oh, hey, we're going to the university and maybe the university will be able to help out. Maybe it will not be. Okay. So really your financial aid, both your applications should go to the university, or will go to the university, should go to the university. Now, the new FAFSA has been they tried to make it a little bit more similar to the CSS profile by trying to do all of the new, the nuances, but it launched in January. It was supposed to launch in December 1st. They made that into December like 31st, and then that turned into January 1st, and that turned into we're gonna be opening it, but in waves and 2-week periods, and the site is going to be bombarded, so please be aware, and so on. So they have a lot of technical glitches. So there have been some issues, but overall, they'll figure it out. And I don't think it's really going to, I know there's one senior on the call actually, but it should be sorted soon. That's cool. Okay, we have a student on the call. I did make that comment before. Do we have any students? And I see in the chat that we have a student. Okay, so it will get sorted out. It just might be a little bit delayed. And it's always good to keep your options open with the private scholarships component. So with those private sources of funding, that's just a whole separate application that the private company or organization gets to decide. Now, for anyone who's not familiar with the concept of scholarships, because sometimes we do have immigrants, so just to make sure, by definition, scholarships are just money that does not have to be paid back, similar to grants. But the reason for scholarship funding, sometimes they can actually overlap. There's a blending. There's blending between scholarships and grants, because we said grants can be needs-based, so can scholarships. Scholarships can also be financial need indicated based. So there's some overlap, but really both of those are just free money that does not ever need to be paid back and will not ever be held against you, or really conditional, so to speak, that you have on condition of paying back type of thing. And you can receive scholarships for a variety of reasons. And the reasons are merit-based and needs-based, we've covered. Then you can have the athletic scholarships. You can have artistic scholarships. You can also have, if you're a minority or if you're first generation, there's scholarships for you. If you're community service oriented, that doesn't mean that you completely revamp the whole country or your state or something big. But if you've had maybe 200 hours of community service or 300 hours of community service throughout your entire 4 years, which I know for Reading, we have the NCL. So with the National Charity League, there's a good chance that, yeah, these girls will actually accumulate a couple hundred hours of community service throughout their 4 years in high school. So then look for the community service based. And it doesn't matter what kind of community service you did. It's more of the depth of your service, the longevity of your service, what kind of stories, what experiences did you get, what growth did you experience, which those will just be the themes for anything college related, which is how did you grow as a person? What kind of lessons did you learn? What kind of obstacles did you go through? How did you navigate the situation? Doesn't mean you always were successful and you did it well in the first time around, but simply talk about how you experienced some kind of challenge or got into ooh, what's this type of situation, and then how you navigated that. Okay. Then there are STEM-based scholarships, especially for women who are interested in STEM or girls who are interested in STEM. So it's worth looking into. Any kind of leadership that you might have done, if there's an impact that you had, any kind of projects you might have led, even if it was like a community service project, but you were the one who was organizing everything, that counts. Like you can double dip on the topics that you have for your scholarships. It's not just a one or another. And then I say essay based because sometimes you'll have these random essay topics. Like there was one a couple months ago from a vet's office, I think, or some kind of animal helping. I don't know if the thing is, I don't know if it was an animal shelter or if it was a vet's office, but the essay topic was what is the best way to take care of a feline? So a cat, or I guess any feline family, but what are the best ways? And then you have that one, they asked you for 250 words, which is about 2 paragraphs. So you might have something like that. Then state specific. So sometimes states have certain needs of their own. Maybe they need more teachers, maybe they need more medical professionals. And on the Department of Education website for the state, they might have some types of scholarships listed. Now, with that said, some of these websites are super out of date, which as I was doing my research, it was really frustrating, but there are ways around that where you just go to one of the scholarship databases and the database will just do the filtering for you so you don't necessarily miss your opportunities. Then there are scholarships for international students who want to come to this country, but also if you wanted to do study abroad, there are scholarship opportunities for that. And then there are some random quirky topics like um, this one you might even find on my Instagram or my Facebook. But Facebook you have to really dig through. But Instagram it's easier to scroll down to history. But there's stuff like if there was a zombie apocalypse. So if there were zombies have invaded your town or your city, what's your game plan? And you have like 250 words or 300 words or 400 words to describe your game plan. Or they have duck calling as one of the scholarships I've seen. And there's Minecraft. There's scholarships for that. There's scholarships for, I'm trying to think of some of the other fun ones that I've seen, but obviously when you need them, they don't come to you. And then randomly in the middle of a conversation, it'll be like, oh yeah, and this. But let's keep it to those three for now. And then we'll see if we come across a few when we're navigating the databases. But so ultimately, the main point of this whole thing is to say that no matter who you are, there is a scholarship out there for you, or actually hundreds of scholarships out there for you. Now, of course, that brings us to the question of, great, thanks, Priyanka. You've told us that there's something out there, but where can we find this? So let's take a look. Now, one of the first things I want to point out is actually not this one. Let's go back to the other slide. Is that every single one of these is a database. So with a database, it means that if let's say for my business of Let's Talk College, I'm offering a scholarship. Well, how am I going to publicize this? How will people know that I'm offering this money? Well, I can post it on one of the databases or all of the databases. So I can post it on scholarships.com and on FastWeb and on KPAX and on Niche. So what I'm getting at is that you will see overlaps in the scholarships that are offered. So just make sure that when you are applying, you only apply one time because you don't want to get disqualified for having multiple entries. Okay, so let's actually take a look at some of these databases. Now, the first one we're going to look at will be scholarships.com. Now, I don't have an account for this, and they do ask you to create an account, but I want to just familiarize you with the page. So in this, you can find scholarships now. You create your page. When you go into student sign up, they're going to have you, this is like a basic, just to not scare you away. But then what they do is they actually ask you to create a student profile. And that can take about 10-15 minutes to create, just because they'll ask you your GPA information, SAT scores, if you have anything to report, community service, if that's something that you have done. And kind of they'll hit all the categories that we just talked about for the different types of scholarships. So they'll try to make sure that they've asked you pretty much all this information. And that way they can actually find you the scholarships that pertain to you. So with these databases, they'll actually email you the scholarships that you qualify for. So you don't have to go looking through millions of scholarships. You just have to fill out your profile. Same thing with FastWeb. These are the two biggest databases, FastWeb and scholarships.com. So they have millions on here. You just have to create your profile, which will customize, like they said, it'll customize these scholarship matches for you, and they'll email these to you. So you don't really have to come back to the website unless you're applying for the scholarship. So they make it as easy as possible. And sometimes the databases will even remind you if you have deadlines coming up for particular scholarships on your list. Apply, get money, and then yeah, they do the work for you. So you really just don't have to do anything. It's free. It's completely free. So that's another point I want to make is not one of these databases will be charging you a penny for using this. Then we have College Board Scholarship Search. At this point, every single student, except for maybe the 7th grader on the call, but other than that, 8th graders onwards, because of PSATs, pretty much every student should have a College Board account, okay? And because you have the College Board account, you should also be able to use their scholarship database. So that's another database access. Now, there's also a couple others. Again, you'll have this in writing because you will receive the PDF. So we're not going to go through every single one of the databases because there's just a lot of overlap in that. But the other one I want to show you is Niche, just because we'll actually be able to see scholarships without me having an account. So niche.com, niche scholarships. And look, misspelled and everything. I'm showing you. I intentionally did not pull up all these tabs in advance because I wanted you to see what I was entering into Google and then just how far I had to scroll or what it showed up as. So when you are looking for these, there's basically less confusion, more clarity on how to what you're clicking on. Okay. Now, they actually tell us the scholarships. So you have a lot of no essay scholarships. Something to note, if it's no essay, if it's simple to apply to, a raffle basically, a lot of students are going to apply to that because it's easy, right? It's the fewest obstacles in the way type of thing. And that's fine. By all means, apply to them. But then don't hesitate to look at some of the other scholarships that might require some essays for you to write. Let's see what happens if we they say no new results, but I just haven't clicked on the right thing. All popular, save. And then they'll go through and there will be also some for, this isn't all the scholarships they have, but even if this is, you'll see the same scholarships on FastWeb and on scholarships.com. All of these are questions or like the state you live in and so on. So you see the state category. When I mentioned that our state, whichever state's Department of Education website might be glitchy, or not even glitchy, just not updated. If you enter the state that you live in, if the state has something registered, Connecticut has something registered. Well, then they'll pop up. We have nursing scholarships available. Okay, so the databases will generally try to cover all the fields, whether that's government related or private offerings ultimately. I kind of wanted you to get an idea for that. And these are still very simple filters. There are the ones that I told you for the profile purposes, they actually have much more detailed filters. So that's how you can find scholarships online. So it's open to everybody, no matter what background, what experiences you come from. Then the other sources of scholarships can be local businesses. So I, again, making this up, I don't know if Carluzzi's, for example, offers scholarships, but let's say they do. Well, go check their bulletin boards out or go check their website and see if they do offer anything. Or check out, let's say, the local fire departments or the local Rotary Club or Key Clubs or to see what's available there. So the local nonprofits, basically. For example, I know that in Wilton Go Green, which is the environmental nonprofit, offers a $2,500 or $2,000 scholarship for one lucky student or two lucky students. So check out the local organizations that exist, check out the local businesses that exist. And sometimes that might mean going to the library in case those businesses have posted a flyer or something there. That might mean going to the community centers and seeing if something was posted there. And sometimes that might even mean just knocking on the doors of local businesses. And we're a pretty small community because I'm in Reading as well. So we're a pretty small town. So it's also not that difficult to just knock on, like check out the local businesses and see if that's even a thing, particularly the larger businesses, to see if that's even offered. So those are the major local sources because they might not have actually gotten around to putting, like the local Key Club or Rotary Club may not be registering their scholarship on a national database. Okay. So just something to keep in mind as you search. All right. Any questions so far? This is actually a much shorter presentation than probably all my other presentations, which is, I think, a surprise because we always go over time. And this time we've reserved more time from you than we will actually need. So if you're interested in the basketball game, you'll be able to get to it. All right. Couple of myths and main points really that I want to address. So first up, we talked about the different types of scholarships available. So I think at this point, hopefully we've debunked this first one, which is that only top students get scholarships because that's merit-based category, sure. But there were so many other categories that we saw. And it's not, there's no real excuse not to apply for scholarships because there's availability everywhere. Now, the second one is that it takes a lot of time to apply for scholarships. Well, yes, it can, but there's a strategy to it, which is that yes, you all have these funky scholarships like the zombie equation, the invasion. I can't speak right now. The zombie invasion or the Minecraft, but for the most part, most of these scholarships will be asking you, okay, so most of these scholarships, and I want to acknowledge, I see the question in the chat. I'm just gonna finish this up and then we'll talk a little bit more about your particular question. So, yeah, so most of these scholarships will actually be asking you the same topics. They'll be asking you some kind of growth period, community service information, or leadership information, or um, obstacles you've like just experiences you've had that changed your life. It's very similar to the college essay topics. And what will happen is you'll actually end up writing these core 8, maybe 10 essays, and these core essays you will be able to just tweak and reuse and reuse and reuse to help you apply to hundreds of scholarships. So initially, yes, there is a lot of work because you have to write your original 10, right? As you come across these topics, they'll happen, but you have to write your original 8 to 10, however many it is. But once you get to that stage, then it's tweaks and you send, tweaks and you send, and that's when you really kind of have exponential growth ability on how many scholarships you can apply to. So yes, and upfront as you write your initial, it could take some time, but then after the fact, it's worth it. Okay, it's worth it. So then the third misconception we have is that you can't apply until you're a senior. You can apply as early as 8th grade. Even and there's no limitation. Some even start earlier than that, but you get fewer and fewer the earlier you try and get. But you can apply as, let's say, you'll have actual scholarships you could apply to, definitely by 8th grade, definitely by 9th. And then after 10th, I mean, that's just 10th and into college, you can apply. And I want to emphasize that because applying for scholarships is really an ongoing cycle. So for all of the parents and students who are on the call who are in college or have kids who are in college, a lot of these scholarships are one-time payments. So you either have to reapply for the same scholarship again, and one-time payments could be for an entire year, but it's just a one-time payment. It's not renewing every year. So it's up to the student to reapply to that scholarship and find new opportunities as well. So it's an ongoing process. But like I said, if you've written down your original 10 essays, which will be tweaked as you get more and more experience and in college, but ultimately you can still keep this process going. Okay. Um, and then, of course, a common one I get, and this is actually why I can't seem to get students to actually legitimately take applying to scholarships seriously, which is when we did our search, we saw a lot of big numbers, the $2,500 or $2,000 scholarships, or like there was one that was $10,000 scholarships. A lot of the scholarships will be maybe $500 scholarships or $1,000 scholarships. And when you have a tuition bill that's $35,000 and the total cost is like $52K a year, then you look at the 1,000 or 500 and students will say, that's not really worth it to me. I don't want to put in, bringing back to point number 2, I don't want to put in all this time to apply to these scholarships on top of all the other work I have to do, whether that's applications, whether that's schoolwork, or just chilling, procrastination and avoidance, both categories. We have both types of students. But these amounts look so small. So it's not worth it for me to do that. And I hear this, I have heard this from students, and which is why I provide them with all the information I'm giving you. But then, and they're gung-ho about it in the beginning, and we get them signed up and profiles created in the databases. And then as I follow up, oh, did you apply? Did you write an essay? It's always, nah, like that scholarship was too small, etc. So don't fall into that trap. Small numbers they build up, okay? And like I said, you create those first bank of essays, and then you can reuse them, tweak a little and reuse them. It's a cycle. The other thing I wanted to say with this, so we talked about applying for scholarships, the tweaks, small scholarships, but then it'll come to me. There was one point I wanted to make on this, but to go to a question in the chat, which is, I'm applying for a music college. Do you know of any specific sites or avenues I can look into? Also, hearing impaired. Actually, these sites that I mentioned, they are the ones you should look into. Which means because they actually will ask you all these questions. They'll ask you about any learning differences or any kind of registered disabilities. They'll also ask you about, again, career interests, any field of study that you might be interested in. So they will help you they'll scour everything for you. The only thing they cannot get to is a university specific scholarship. So let's say Berklee College of Music it has specific scholarships for their students. Well, the scholarship database cannot offer you that option. Okay, that is something you have to go on the university's website to get that information. The other part actually is that since I'm on that topic, if let's say the university gave you a certain amount of money, let's say they gave you um $10,000 and you need more. They haven't met your financial need. So first of all, write a letter of financial appeal. It's 1 page PDF, or when you're writing this, really, you're emailing it really. So you're writing up an email and you're attaching this PDF along with any kind of documentations that show any life changes. Such as job loss, medical condition, medical bills, whatever it might be. You're providing evidence as you do this. But then what you want to do is, as a student or parent, you want to do the research as to the different scholarships that the university offers, because then in your letter, you can say, hey, look, yes, I have this problem that I don't have enough funding and I would love to get more from the university, but then you're offering them a solution. But this particular scholarship, this one, Brett Warner, I don't know, scholarship for $5,000, and it says these are the requirements and I seem to meet them. Is it possible to add this scholarship to my account, or to my to my account? Does that make sense? So you did their homework for them. Is you did the research on what the scholarships the university, or what kind of funding, grant, scholarships that the university offers. And then as you write your financial aid appeal letter, you're clearly telling them, look, or asking them really, that is it possible that by name this could be available to me? So they don't have to think about, oh, where will we get this money? You're specifically saying, look, I seem to meet the criteria of this. Is it possible? So that's another source of scholarships that you can get into. Okay. All right. So a question we have in the chat is, basically that once you're in college, you can apply. Yeah, that you can often reapply for a scholarship. Yes. And you'll probably have to. Now, with that said, some scholarships are renewable. So some might say, oh, yeah, that's fine. The same people who have previously received and qualified can apply. And some might say, no, 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 no. We only do the one time. And then next time we just want to give others people opportunities to also do it. So varies by scholarship, but yes, you do continue your application and reapplication process for scholarships as you keep moving forward. And basically, as long as you're in school, you can keep applying, and as long as you meet the parameters of that specific scholarship, you can either reapply if they allow you to, or you can apply for other scholarships. So you're not just limited by, ooh, I have to get everything done before I go to college. You can be in college and still applying to hundreds of scholarships every year. And in fact, once you register for the databases, they're pretty much going to be emailing you about the scholarships that you qualify for anyway. So it's always a benefit to basically update your profile as you move forward, because yes, they'll keep advancing you. Oh, this person registered in, let's say, 2024, but it was March. So let's say by the time we were messaging them in August of 2024, we'll know that they're seniors at that point, because in March they were registered as juniors. So they might keep upgrading you or elevating you, but you want to make sure other parts of your profile are still current and relevant. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so the question is, hundreds of scholarships, the right target? Yes, so 100 scholarships. You can apply. The thing is, it's a numbers game, okay? Which is why the databases, they have millions available, because you have a lot of small entities like small businesses, any of the large corporations, they're all offering money. But the thing is, the more you apply to, the higher your chances of actually getting a good amount of funding. But it's not as hard if you, once again, create your 10 or 8 to 10 core essays, and it's just applying. Okay. Um, okay. And the other question I have is, if you get a scholarship in middle school, where do you put the money? And that we're going to talk about in disbursement. And so that will be addressed, because it is a common question and it's a very valid question that needs to be covered. But we will get to it, promise. Any questions on anything so far? Okay. All right. So then, a couple of scams to be aware of. First of all, if you ever have to pay any kind of fees, whether that's to use the database platforms, because like I told you when we were on these websites, they're all free. College Board is free, FastWeb is free, scholarships.com is free, Unigo, Niche, and again, you'll have all these in writing because you'll get my PDF for this PowerPoint. They're all free. Now, those are not all the databases that exist. There are so many more out there. I gave you the big ones because, like I said, there will be a lot of overlaps with these scholarships. So I just gave you the big ones because pretty much you'll find whatever you need on those. So there are no fees whatsoever from the database. There are no fees whatsoever from the scholarship itself. There is no, oh, you have to pay to enter. No, 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 no. Every entry is free. They are the ones giving you money, not the other way around. Okay. Then if a scholarship tells you that, oh, you're a guaranteed winner in some way. Now, here's the thing about my job. In college counseling, in test prep, in scholarship applications, whatever it is, there are no guarantees. I cannot guarantee what school you can get into because, well, I don't know what the university needs at that point. And you can be a perfect applicant, but same copy and paste applicant, but from California got in because the university needed diversity by location this year, right? And I have no control over that. So same thing with scholarships is that no one can just as you apply, unless you know the people from behind the scenes or something, but no one can guarantee any kind of scholarships. It's a scam. Then if it sounds too good to be true, so hey, look at this amount, you're guaranteed the scholarship, especially if you just give us like, if you send us like $50 or something, we can guarantee you this, or it just sounds really too good to be true, then it's not. Just avoid it. Okay. Then if there's no contact information provided. So we didn't click on the scholarships. Let me see if we can. If I didn't, yeah, I didn't close out. So let's say I click on this one. I'm not even sure which one I did because, okay, so Scholarship Owl. Now what happens is it took me to a different website, the website of the scholarship provider. I have the registration information, blah, blah, blah. Look, there's actual information available. 4 winners will be selected and they all get 1,000 each. That's each month because a total is 50 grand that they're trying to give out. They have some ability, responsible, register for free, etc. Now that's because got this particular company, it's actually a company, so they just have a contact page, right? They'll have register, blah, 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 and then about us and contact. So they'll have some kind of way for you to get in touch with them. If it's a smaller business or smaller, let's see if I can find, first I need to get rid of this filter. Yeah, sure. There was another one. Let's see this one. With those sometimes, yeah, this one, with level of study, eligibility, they'll give you the requirements and then, and in this case, they have all the deadlines, etc. Some of them will just give you an email address and they'll say, it's just, I can't find it now because I think I just did all the filters, blah, blah, blah. But some of them will specifically say, hey, this is the contact person. We have blah, blah. Yeah. So I can't find exactly what I'm looking for right now, but they'll basically say, oh, look, here we go. Right. So I was like, I saw this recently. They'll just give you the contact information. So they'll give you their guidelines. It's not going to be anything fancy. They redirect you to their page, which it's okay if you've done that from one of the databases because these databases are reliable. So there's a very, very low chance you're going to come across spam or viruses or something like that. These are all pretty reliable. They'll give you their requirements and then they'll give you some kind of contact information. If there's no contact information in any way, then don't trust that. Okay. Yeah, so don't trust that. And then I see the question in the chat and I'm just going to finish this part out and then I'll answer that question. So just wanted to acknowledge that. But then if there are any kind of pressure tactics, so you apply now, deadline coming up, blah, blah, blah. Now there's a reminder, there's a general reminder, but if you feel like boom, 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 and usually pressure tactics will also come with asking you for any kind of sensitive information like your banking, social security, then no, no, no. I don't care if it's a free school, like they're just giving you the money and they're willing to give you $10,000 if you give them your social security. That's like a too good to be true deal. No. Okay, there's no pressure. This is it. It's quite literally, you're filtering through, you're getting these scholarships listed out in your email, you click on it, you get your eligibility requirements, you send in the application. Whether that's an essay, whether that's a form you fill out, whether that's recommendations or transcripts or maybe that's what I said, essay, or if it's arts, then maybe it's some kind of performance piece, whether that's a recording of your music or your whatever art or pictures of your art, whatever that might be. Um, but that's it, right? And sometimes you might have to put that in a Google Drive and then send the Google Drive link and share that Google Drive link, but that's it. So it's really supposed to be a straightforward process. No sensitive information should be given out. How much time? So, let me make sure I got to the other questions in the chat just to make sure. Okay. So disbursement question, disbursements on the next slide. So I will get to that when it comes to middle school. And if you apply, then what happens to the money? The other question we have in the chat is how much time do you recommend students dedicate to this? Like how many hours a week, or is there a particular cycle, maybe done, do it over the summer, etc. Okay. I'm actually going to pull up a different presentation I do. Oh shoot, this call's being recorded, so you're gonna see, the world's gonna see my timeline. Okay. Really? Where's my PPTX? Watch, it's probably right there in front of my face and I don't see it. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we need visuals because I prefer visuals and it's just easier to explain with the timelines in front of us. Now, ideally, if you're earlier in the game, I recommend spending at least, it depends because I've had so many students who are just so into their extracurriculars, meaning their extracurriculars take up so much of their time that they really don't have that much. But let's say if you're a freshman in high school, sophomore, and let's say summer vacation is coming up, ideally you want to spend at least 2 to 3 hours a day if you have nothing else going on applying for scholarships because it'll take you that long to write your essays and so on. So at least 5 days a week, right? If you can spend 3 hours 5 days a week, that's a good call. If you can spend 5 hours 5 days a week, it's even better. And then because the thing is that with the timelines, you have other stuff coming up. So for example, the current juniors, you can have APs coming up. So that's priority. You have finals coming up, also priority. Then you're also going to have, let's make sure I didn't click on anything before I go to the next slide. Otherwise, this is gonna mess everything up. Okay. Yeah, then you have your college applications and everything coming up. So some of the reasons students don't apply is just they're just really overwhelmed with everything. So you have your college essays, your supplementals, etc., coming up. Ideally, you want that done over the summer. And then you have your grades and extracurriculars that still continue into the school year. Demonstrate interest. And then look, so you're applying for scholarships all throughout. Whenever you have the opportunity, you apply. Okay. And of course, if you can front load your work as much as possible, you have free time. Then I recommend just whenever you have free time. So I can't unfortunately give you this like hardcore information because as you can see from all the colors on this slide, there's quite a lot going on for the students. It's not as easy necessarily to say, oh, well, I know what your schedule is, so you need to dedicate, if you could dedicate 2 hours a week, great. During the school year, that's great. But really, I would maximize my summer time for something like this, where whatever you have going on, whether that's sports conditioning, but that's for, let's say, 3 to 4 hours a day. Okay. And then maybe you wake up earlier in the morning before your conditioning starts and work on this stuff. And then you go to your conditioning, and in the evening, you just chill, hang out with friends, whatever it might be. So lots of ways to do this, but I can't unfortunately give you this clear answer. Ideally, an hour or two per week would be nice over the school year, but I don't know your schedule, right? Sometimes even right now, I have students I can't pin down for our one-on-one sessions because they have theater performances and rehearsals that they have to be at, and even on Saturdays, or they have sports that need to happen. And then after that, they have an instrument that they practice. So it's like a boom, boom, boom situation of back-to-back scheduling. So it's whenever you can find the time, but summer is coming up. I highly recommend maximizing that opportunity. Okay. All right. So any other questions before we start talking about disbursement? Okay. And again, if you have questions along the way, just keep coming. All right. So there are two ways this disbursement can work. The first way is the payment can go directly to university. So let's say I offer scholarships as Let's Talk College, and I will ask you, okay, what's your final university? Now, if you applied and you are a ninth grader or 10th grader, I'll probably know that, oh, this kid's not going to know yet. They're too young. They're still figuring this out. In which case I might say, okay, you know what? This is your money, but once you figure it out in senior year, when you get your acceptance letter, just let us know and we will directly transfer that. And let us know and give us your student account number so that we can then send that money to that account, like that university, and the university can associate it to your account and add your funds in. Okay, so that's one way that can happen, is just payments happen directly to the university. And then the other way is that you get a check. Now, like I said, banking information you don't want to share. So if a scholarship's offering you any kind of direct deposit, for the most part, 98, 99% of the time, that's not going to happen. They're just going to write a check out for the student. And that means you're allowed to spend your money technically however you want. But keep in mind that they've already checked that you are a high school student. You've provided some kind of transcripts and some paper evidence to show that you are, in fact, a legitimate student and not just somebody trying to get money. But they can pay this money directly to you. Now, the question I received yesterday when I did this in Wilton was, well, then what do you do with that money? And I recommend putting it in your 529 just for the tax advantages and everything. You don't want to get taxed on something like this. But I recommend just putting it in the 529, and that way it's just collecting interest as you're waiting for college to happen. So that's the way you can do it. Now, have students ever misused these checks that they receive from universities or from scholarships? Why, yes, they have. Not my students that I know of, because I struggle just to get them to do their applications. But back when I was in college, yeah, there was somebody who they tried to play the stock market because that's what they wanted to learn, and then they end up losing all the money. So yes, students have gotten creative with how they spent their money, but ultimately the scholarship is simply trying to help you with your education, and then they're trusting that you will decide where you need it most, whether that's in housing, whether that's in tuition, whether that's in buying your textbooks. Some scholarships are specific and they'll say, hey, we are only going to cover your textbooks, or we're only going to cover your tuition. And they'll tell you clear cut, but some will just say funds are yours, you decide where you want to put them. So you'll see these when we were scrolling through, you saw some of the eligibility and some disbursement information for specific scholarships. So you will come across all this information as you are going through it. But the main point right now is to actually apply, because that is the hurdle that is hardest to cross. For parents, that's hardest to cross when you're trying to get your teenagers to do it. For somebody like me, it's hardest to cross when I'm trying to get teenagers to do it. And that's not because they don't want to. It's just, like I said, some of them just have so much back-to-back scheduling that they barely have room to breathe. And when they do have room to breathe, I would hate to just add on this one extra thing that they could do. So it's not just because they're being lazy, but I have met the students who are being lazy. So it's a twofold thing. But yes, the main thing right now is just to apply to scholarships, and you'll automatically see how this works. Just the one thing is stay away from providing any kind of crazy personal information like your banking account or your social security. That's it. That's my sort of one major red flag warning. Okay. I think I've made it a point to answer it. Please let me know if I skipped over your question by accident. I'm gonna just take a look again, but if you have any questions, then please let me know at this point, because we're kind of reaching the conclusion of our presentation. So I want to make sure that we've talked about everything you were curious about when it comes to scholarships. Ultimately, yeah, it's just applying. It's creating those accounts. Go on FastWeb. Even tonight, just go on FastWeb and at least create your login, and then maybe you create the profile over the weekend, right? But at least if you have the first step done, then the databases will remind you, hey, profile pending. Okay. Okay, so the question we have in the chat is, what's the point of the CSS profile? So let's go back to that. There are two major financial aid applications that exist at this point in time in our country. The first one is FAFSA, which stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And FAFSA will actually, so the new FAFSA does take into account the separated parents, and they're still playing with it a little bit. So unfortunately, it's hard for me to say exactly what's on it because they're tweaking it on the back end as well. So they're playing with it. The disbursement's still, it's a work in progress. But again, the current seniors are really the main ones who will be impacted by this. Everybody else, hopefully everything will be figured out by then. But yes, the new FAFSA will take into account separated parents, or separated incomes and so on. it's supposed to that's one of the major categories. CSS profile is still more detailed in terms of the financial form. So you can always take a look at the FAFSA, and then you can always take a look at the CSS profile, because once again, students at this point already, this is on College Board. So College Board, there are two different websites. So FAFSA is just FAFSA is student.gov, but we're just going to put in FAFSA and student.gov, and boom, this is going to be your website. You just start a new form, or actually you're currently you've already filled out a form, or you have somebody in college right now. Remember that you have to keep updating your form every single year if you want to renew your financial aid. So it's not just a one and done process. It's an ongoing process based on family income, needs, and so on. So just something to keep in mind with the FAFSA. Same thing with the CSS profile. So CSS profile is by College Board, and we were just on their website. College Board has a bit of is a very big player in our college applications game. So they have a college search feature, they have a scholarships feature, they take care of and are in charge of APs, PSATs, SATs, everything related to all those major categories. They're also one of the reasons, ACT is the other reason, but they're the reason that you're receiving all these flyers in the email, in your mail and email, for especially all you sophomores, juniors, and seniors. But this is why because they're also sharing your information, selling your information to universities that are interested. So College Board is a very big player, and one of the components that they have is a financial aid application. And you can always fill it out, see what the differences are, and then if you decide to send it in, then you can always again pay the fee that goes with it, or figure out if you need to talk to your guidance counselor about getting any kind of fee waiver. Okay, now once again with the wrong PowerPoint, but with the FAFSA, with the CSS profile, what will happen is that will go directly to the university. So both applications will ask you which universities are you considering, because these are happening in senior year. So at that point, most students have some kind of solid college list. Even if that college list has 20 universities on it, there's some kind of list. And they'll ask you what universities you're looking into. And this FAFSA form will be shared with the federal government so that you can receive packages from them, and also with the university so that the university can determine any needs-based scholarships they can offer you. The CSS profile goes directly to the university, so university can offer any kind of needs-based scholarships based on the more specified information that came with the CSS profile. Oh, so the question we have in the chat, once a student has registered for the databases, do they get reminders for the next years? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And I remember when I registered, I was still getting emails, because I didn't unsubscribe because I felt, someday I will take the time to apply to these scholarships. But even when I was graduating college and then wanted to grad school and such, they'll still send you. And like I said, they'll automatically elevate you so if you're a junior currently, they'll automatically, when time comes, be like, okay, this person will be a senior. And then this person will be a freshman in college, and they'll elevate you by that. But if there's any other component of your application that's changed, maybe that's the community service hours or your GPA, you want to make sure, or your academic interest, because especially when you get into college and now you realize, oh, actually I want to go into nursing, I want to go into anthropology or whatever else, make sure you're updating those profiles. All right. Question I have in the chat is it worth creating a CSS profile in ninth grade or earlier? There is no such thing as CSS profile in ninth grade or earlier. CSS profile and FAFSA are only for seniors. So that's not even a priority at the moment. It'll happen only for 12th graders, because CSS profile opens on October 1st, and FAFSA also used to open on October 1st, but right now it's a little glitchy. We don't know when the official open date for the new FAFSA will be, because this year it was supposed to roll out in December, then it rolled out in January, and then there were glitches along the way. So October 1st senior year is when CSS profile at least will open. So that's when you fill it out. All right, well, in that case, everybody, thank you so much for attending. And we have a talk next month on how to find the right college for you. So if you're interested, please go on the Mark Twain Library website and register for that. And for all the current juniors, we have a talk in May about what your priorities need to be over the summer. And that is an important talk, because it used to be the timeline talk. You saw me pull up the PowerPoint. that was too long, and we divided it into two. So we did one talk in January about or February about a general timeline, but then we're getting detailed for all of you current juniors, sophomores and juniors, but really the juniors. So please check that out in May. All right. All right. Then thank you so much for attending and have a great evening.